It is the third Tuesday of the month. That means we had a city council meeting this morning. And as we always do, we like to come back to the SATV studios afterwards and break down a little bit of what happened during the meeting that might be of interest, importance, and impact to you. And we had two discussions today that our city attorney was smack dab in the middle of, so we asked her to join us here today. We're joined by Teresa James. Teresa, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome.
So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is before the 8:30 a.m. meeting, we actually had a special meeting 5 minutes before for the city council to consider a resolution relating to the waiving of some ordinances as a result of the impact of Saturday's storm on our community. So tell us how the resolution and the waiving of some of those ordinances first came about.
Well, you know, the waiving of the ordinances came about as part of the whole process of dealing with emergencies within our city. On Saturday, the mayor declared, along with the county judge, a local emergency related to the storm, particularly the tornado, and that set into place a number of powers that we had. We did a tour. The mayor, Daniel, city manager, and myself went out to the neighborhood and we talked to the people. We tried to assess needs on a very personal level with them. Spent probably 4 hours out there, and then the mayor and Daniel were back out there the next day as well. And from that, we got a list of the things that we realized need to be done to further help those folks. And those were the items that we put into the resolution. The other thing that happened during the storm is that we have citywide brush and debris. I mean, it wasn't an extremely localized storm, just the tornado was very localized. So Shane Kelton, who's our director of operations, needed a contract to help deal with a lot of that brush, and so we authorized that as well. And then, although we're going to be seeking funds related to disasters, right now we needed some authorization for expending money to help with the further cleanup of the storm right now. So we also authorized $250,000.
And so, do you think that the moves that the city council made today, are those meant to impact the storm victims in particular or the community at large?
Well, I think it's both, depending on which one of the items we're talking about. There's a waiver of late fees for the water utility for a period, I believe, of 30 days. And that is specifically for those folks within the neighborhood where the tornado most impacted them. They have different financial needs than those of us who just have a bunch of limbs in our yard. The provisions that deal with the animals, there were animals getting out all over town. Fences were blown down all over town. So that one has, of course, a broader reach. The ones for the building permits, also there was damage to structures across town, so that one also applies throughout the entire city.
And so how was it decided which ordinances to waive? I mean, was it really just a result of people telling you, hey, these are the things that we've suffered or encountered since Saturday's storms?
That's where we started. We started with realizing what the needs were out there, what the needs we were seeing with each director and each department. Pretty much all day yesterday, I spent the day having conversations with the directors saying, is there any kind of authority in the ordinance that's hindering your ability to help these people quickly? And if so, that's what we addressed. There was also the consideration of financial impact for people recovering, which is how a lot of the fees ended up getting waived.
And are there any of these waived ordinances that strike you as particularly important?
I think for the rebuilding is the permits. That's going to be very important for those folks to not have to pay those permit fees. And that is very specific to storm-related damage. So if you're already planning on replacing your roof and your roof wasn't damaged, that's not going to get you a fee waiver. But if you're in one of the affected areas or you can demonstrate that your damage was due to the storm, then we'll certainly help you with those.
So in that instance, our Building and Inspections Division will be looking at those sort of permits on a case-by-case basis.
That's right. And we have a very good idea of where most of the damage has occurred. So, I mean, it's going to help them really make those evaluations in a very efficient manner.
And as you mentioned, a lot of these, including the permit waiver, which is for 6 months, a lot of these have a time-specific deadline on it. Is there a possibility that, depending upon the needs, that those waivers of some of those ordinances might be extended?
I think that, you know, if we see a need ongoing, that's certainly a possibility. We would do exactly what we did, probably not in an emergency meeting at that point because the emergency is mostly over. But we can always, if we see a need in our community, take steps to help address that need.
And for anyone out there who is needing to look and see what ordinances were waived, we have those available on our website, on our news page, and you can get to that through three different ways on our homepage. There's a link at the top of the page, a link in the middle of the page, and a link at the bottom of the page. all that will take you to that information if you're needing to know exactly what those waived ordinances are. So we offer that for your perusal. Teresa, you also today proposed to the City Council an abusive conduct policy. Now tell us what that is and how it came about.
Well, that came about, this has been one of those projects I've been working on and proposing to Daniel for a while now, and it comes about because I get the opportunity to work with employees throughout our organization. And they all have a very consistent story, it seems like, when it comes to dealing particularly with some members of our public. Our frontline employees deal with a lot of people who are very unhappy, and we understand that they're not always happy or satisfied when they contact us, but they also take a lot of abusive behavior from folks. And in an effort to have good customer service and be helpful, some of them aren't really sure how much of that they need to do or to take before they can remove themselves. So I decided that we needed a policy so that it's across the board, everybody operates under the same rules related to how we interact with folks who are being abusive. And now, when I'm saying abusive, I don't mean that they're yelling necessarily or that they're just angry, but the abuse that I'm talking about are very pointed, profane statements directed at the person. It's name calling. It's situations where they repeatedly call. I'm talking 40, 50, 60, 70 times in the course of a day. Repeated emails that are just not appropriate. Those kind of behaviors is what we're trying to address.
And when you talk about the sort of personal conduct that they may encounter, really it's meant to demean the public servant as opposed to, make a point, it seems like.
Right, and sometimes I think that as people, they just become so emotional about a situation that they go into that behavior, and at that point there's no way we're going to help them anyway. So what the policy does is it gives our employees the ability to take action that protects them from that behavior. But we also want to make sure we're protecting the public. We're not like a restaurant or some other business where we can ask you to leave and not come back. We are the only place where you can get a building permit. We are the only place where you can get services from the water utility. So we're not trying to just shove people out and not let them participate with us, but we're spelling out a process by which an employee has the ability under certain circumstances to remove themselves from the situation, to notify the person that they're going to be hanging up because of behavior, but they will have somebody else call them back, or to just be able to have a little bit of self-assurance that they can take care of these problems. The other side of that is we want to make sure that we're understanding what this problem is. I know when we talk about it with the directors, all the directors have employees who are treated this way. And by documenting those instances, which is going to be a requirement of the policy, we'll be able to see if there's patterns with certain people or patterns with certain processes that maybe we can do a better job, or we can address those specific people more directly.
I think it's also important that people understand when they treat a frontline employee in an abusive manner, that employee is not really the one who is making decisions that they may be unhappy about. They're simply following through on what their marching orders are.
That is correct. They're often just trying to answer your question, or they're just trying to find the information that you need or to provide the service that you're asking for, and that's the only authority that we give them.
And so it sounds like that you think that this will help to empower those who are being abused to separate themselves from that situation. Are you also hopeful that this sends a message to the community that there's a certain way in which you may not treat a public servant?
I think so. I think empower is a great word. That was the word I was searching for. I think it does empower employees to be able to take care of these issues on their own without any kind of interference from anybody else. But my mother always told me that people treat you the way you let yourself be treated, and I think that's what we're telling the community. We want to help, and we want to be understanding about your needs and your concerns, but we're not going to tolerate, abusive behavior from the public or even internally or from whoever that may come towards our employees.
Do you have any sort of theories as to why we're experiencing this now? It seems like more than ever before.
I think social media allows people to develop patterns of expressing themselves that they wouldn't typically do if they were sitting in front of you. And those patterns carry over to any situation where you're somewhat anonymous. These generally These things generally happen over the phone. Occasionally they do happen in face-to-face meetings. I should also point out that we've taken other steps internally to try to address some of it and to make sure that it's not our employees who are instigating this behavior. For instance, most of our, if not all of our customer service lines are recorded, so we can go back and search through a recording if we need to. We also have installed audio and visual equipment in conference rooms where meetings are held with people from the public often, so that if there's a concern about a meeting, an employee's behavior, or a citizen's behavior, we have an opportunity to review that.
What safeguards does the public have that it won't just simply be an excuse for a public servant to say, I don't want to have to deal with this person, and so I'm going to claim they're abusive and be done with them?
The policy does require that if an employee is going to remove themselves from a meeting, ask somebody to leave or to hang up on a customer, they're going to have to document that. They're going to need to state the name of the customer, the purpose of the call, what the complaint was, whether or not they believed it was recorded or not, and what action they actually took. It also spells out the process they have to take before they disengage from that conversation. They need to give them a warning that, you know, this behavior is not going to be tolerated. And again, they need to tell the person when they hang up that somebody will be calling you back, so we're making sure we're still meeting the needs.
So we've been talking with Teresa James. She is the city attorney. If you want to know more about either of these topics, we would commend to you the city council meeting, which we taped earlier today. You can find that on the City of San Angelo YouTube channel. It is posted on the City of San Angelo Public Information Facebook page. And of course, it airs twice daily on SATV. And we will see you on the first Tuesday in June for the next council catch-up.